Hello. Today I'd like to ask the question, does Grandmaster Yip Man really deserves the fame he has? I mean, there is no doubt that he's extremely famous. When we talk about Wing Chun, the name of Yip Man and Wing Chun are very, very strong, connected together. And I guess there might be nobody in the West doing Wing Chun. I mean, maybe complete beginners, but at least after some weeks of training, I guess there's nobody who doesn't know the name of Yip Man. But why is that? And as I said before, does he really deserve this big fame he has? When we think about it, there's one very, very interesting detail, because I guess that many people in the past started learning Wing Chun because of Yip Man, and not the other way around. So it was not Wing Chun in the first place they liked to learn, but it was, I want to learn what Grandmaster Yip Man taught in the first place. Why is that? First generation of Wing Chun practitioners in the West very often were motivated by Bruce Lee and Bruce Lee's movies. They saw Bruce Lee movies and they said, wow, I've never seen something like this before. I want to do the same thing, I want to fight like Bruce Lee. And then they found out, okay, where does Bruce Lee come from? Where did he learn from? Okay, there's a so-called Grandmaster Yip Man. Okay, great, go for it. And then they kept on, informing, and what was it? Okay, this special kind of Kung Fu, was called Wing Chun. Okay, so go for it, let's learn Wing Chun. But this was like the second or third step. It was first Bruce Lee, then it was Yip Man. And then if Yip Man taught something completely different, people would go for something completely different. But okay, it was Wing Chun, so they ended up learning Wing Chun. And now, another generation of Wing Chun practitioners, people who started maybe, it's now like 10-15 years ago. The Yip Man movies, Donnie Yen, same thing. People went to the cinema, saw those movies and said, oh great, I want to learn what he does. I want to learn this kind of Kung Fu. This Yip Man Kung Fu, I want to learn. What's the name? Wing Chun. Okay, go for it. But again, the first place they wanted to learn Yip Man stuff. And then they found out, okay, the name is Wing Chun. So that's kind of interesting. So it's very strongly connected, the person Yip Man and Wing Chun. But again, what was so special about Yip Man? As I said before, of course, he's so famous because he was Bruce Lee's teacher. There's no doubt about it. And he also became very famous because he had many students who later on also started teaching, and so Wing Chun really could spread over the world. So this was very important because he had many good students. But again, I doubt if those Yip Man students would have been able to find so many students if there was not this story of Bruce Lee. So again, this was like good luck or fate or whatever you may call it, but again, this is very strong connected. But when we think further about Yip Man, and especially when we deal a lot with Wing Chun history, I'm very interested in Wing Chun history and I'm trying to do research for now more than 20 years, but still when we speak about Yip Man, when we think about it, there are not so many stories we know about Yip Man. There are not so many like hero kind of stories about big fights or challenges. No, I mean there is one when he was a young man in his hometown in Fazan, became a Kung Fu master from northern China, and he kind of challenged the city of Fazan and said, okay, whatever master wants to fight him. And then Yip Man took the challenge for all the masters of his hometown and won this fight. So this was maybe one very important fight in his life. But still, there are not so many other stories. Of course there are stories, people tell, his students tell stories about his skills. They tell when you did Chisao with Yip Man, that you were always like all the other tiptoes, and then looking for balance. And yeah, of course, but this is the kind of stories I think everybody knows. Everybody tells about his master or Sifu, and of course when you believe that your Sifu is very good, you start to tell these kind of stories, and that's okay. And again, I'd like to stress, I don't doubt that Yip Man was a great Kung Fu master. Yeah, of course he was. Yeah, of course he had very good skills, but was he really this larger-than-life hero? Again, I do have some doubts, because when you look at history, nowadays we know, or at least it seems very likely, that Yip Man also in his time in Hong Kong exchanged a lot with many other Wing Chun masters of his time, especially Yun Kai-san. Later, that Yip Man created this story about Lloyd Big, because it was obvious that Yip Man had some different influences in his Wing Chun, and then he needed to explain where those influences come from. And he didn't want to tell everybody, well, okay, I learned something from some other Sifu. No, because then it was like, you know, the big story, no, it was like the secret knowledge passed down from Wang Chan to Wang Big and so on, because this was like a great story. But I don't believe it. I think it's very likely that there was this exchange, Yip Man, Yun Kai-san and others. And I believe also that when we look at this kind of exchange, it's very likely, from my point of view, when we look the way Yip Man Wing Chun looks like, Yun Kai-san Wing Chun looks like, it's very likely to me that Yip Man learned much more from Yun Kai-san than the other way around. Understand? So if Yip Man really was this great master, the greatest master of his generation, the story would be different. I think that it's, why not? Of course he took over knowledge from somebody else, okay, but again, if he was the biggest master ever, it would not be necessary. So again, I believe he was a very good Kung Fu master, a good Wing Chun master, but he was not like the greatest of all time, or of his generation, or of the last 100 years or whatever. No, I really don't think so. There's one more thing when you look about Yip Man style Wing Chun, and you very much into this Wing Chun topic, you will also find out that this Yip Man kind of Wing Chun is somehow a little bit simplified, and there is something missing. Yip Man kind of Wing Chun is very often very straight line, you know, very much center through and so on, but there is not so much soft approach, going to the side, taking opponent force. I mean, they talk about it in Yip Man Wing Chun, yes, but when you look at the applications, there's not much there. In other Wing Chun families, there's much more concerning this kind of soft approach, Gulo, for example, or many other styles. So again, compared to other Wing Chun systems, the Yip Man system seems to be very reduced. So again, it's hard to say, okay, this is the greatest kind of Wing Chun ever. You can say it's a simplified version. One can also interpret it very positively. Yeah, of course. It says, why? Because it's more simple, it was easier to teach, and that's maybe was the reason why after Yip Man it was possible that Wing Chun got taught to many people, and now is practiced by million people. So maybe it was a very important step for Wing Chun development to again break it down, to simplify it. But also one can say, well, it's a pity, there was so much lost when we started to simplify it. So again, for me, dealing very much with Wing Chun history, it's also hard to say that yes, what Yip Man did, this was really the best version of Wing Chun that ever existed. No, I don't think so. I really don't think so. So again, I don't want to say that he was not good. He was good, for sure. But I believe that this huge fame he has, maybe in a way he doesn't deserve it in that sense that he was really like the greatest of all time. You know, it was like fate or good luck or whatever. That so happened this story with Bruce Lee, and that so Wing Chun and Yip Man himself became famous. But I don't believe that he himself really was this larger-than-life Kung Fu hero. So again, there are many other questions we could discuss in future videos. So as I said, it's an interesting question. What is actually missing in Yip Man Wing Chun? So if you're interested in Wing Chun in general, you could find many videos in this channel and many more also going to come in English language, and maybe you also like to subscribe. Would be very happy. Then we see each other in one of the next videos.